Welcome back, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed our inauguration programming over the past few hours. We now have 2 more hours of programming that will wrap up the afternoon in Washington, D.C. First, we go to our second interview on the energy implications of the Abraham Accords. This one will be with His Excellency Dr. Yuval Steinitz, Israeli Minister of Energy. And after that, we'll hear from the head of the Libyan National Oil Company, Mustafa Sanalla, about rebuilding the oil sector in Libya. And then finally, we'll have a panel on innovation in nuclear power. So let's right now go back to Hadley Gamble in Abu Dhabi for her conversation with Minister Steinitz.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Atlantic Council's Global Energy Forum. I'm Hadley Gamble, CNBC's anchor and international correspondent based right here in Abu Dhabi. Today, we're going to be talking about the Abraham Accords, and in conversation with His Excellency, Dr. Yuval Steinitz, the Minister of National Infrastructure, Energy, and Water for the State of Israel. Doctor, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to kick off by asking you, were you surprised by how quickly you got to work following the announcement of the Abraham Accords with your counterparts here in the UAE?
Yeah, it was quite surprising because, we already have 2 previous peace agreements with Jordan and Egypt, and it took decades to arrive to some kind of economic cooperation or cooperation in the field of energy. Here it seems much faster, and it was a good surprise. We are already developed very open and candid dialogue with our Emirates counterparts. And it seems that some kind of, and some areas of cooperation are already on their way. So it's a good surprise, I think, not just for us, but for the entire region.
There's been so much conversation about the trillions of dollars in cross-investment that could result from these Abraham Accords. When you think about this with regards to the energy space, where do you see the opportunities and what kind of investments are we talking about?
There are many opportunities. Let me first remind you that even before the Abraham Accord, we already established, it was my initiative together with my Egyptian counterpart, Tarek El-Moula. We already established this forum in Cairo and as an umbrella for regional cooperation in the area of energy. And Israel is already exporting a lot of natural gas to its neighbors, to Egypt and Jordan. But now we're speaking about the Emirates and Bahrain. There are new opportunities here. I think the 2 main areas of cooperation that look are very promising. One is in the field of innovation, research and development, startups and innovation. As you know, Israel is a world leading country in startups and innovations. We have more technological startups than all of the European Union put together. We are second only to the United States in complete figures. And it's a new phenomena, but in the last 4 or 5 years, there are already several hundreds of technological startups in the field of energy. Cybersecurity for the energy sector, energy efficiency, electricity storage, hydrogen cells, solar system, sophisticated solar system, and so on and so forth. The Emirates placed themselves also in this field. They brought IRENA, the International Organization for Renewable Energies, this is located in Abu Dhabi. And I believe that we can see a lot of investments now from the Emirate in Israel, in startups, in R&D, and a lot of joint efforts between research institutes, entrepreneurs and investors, both from Israel and from the Emirate. And this will help us to make the region really a global hub for innovation in the field of energy. We are speaking a lot about climate change, about carbon capture, carbon emission, carbon capture. I think that cooperation in the field of innovation and R&D can serve a lot, not just the region, but the entire world. The second
on this one, because just not to interrupt you, but just in the sense that you're talking about that kind of collaboration in terms of making the region, unlocking the region in terms of energy and the implications that that could have on economies, particularly in countries that are not energy rich. One of the things that it does raise hackles over in some other parts of this region, of course, the UAE, as you mentioned, joining the Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum as an observer, did raise the hackles of Turkey, for example. Where do you see the opportunities for this kind of agreement to actually create peace? Because at the end of the day, economic mobility, economic opportunity, as we've seen from signing the Abraham Accords, does in fact oftentimes lead not just to that economic opportunity, but also to political opportunities as well.
Look, first, with regard to Turkey, I would like to refer to two very important and very big regional powers, Turkey and Iran. Let's start with Turkey. With regard to Turkey, you know, when I became a Minister of Energy 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago, I met President Erdogan at the White House. There was a big conference organized by President Obama at the White House in 2016, Nuclear Security Summit, NSS. And I met with Erdogan, and I spoke with him about the possibility of also exporting Israeli natural gas through a pipeline to Turkey. And later on, we have some discussions with the Turkish energy minister then. Unfortunately, nothing came out of it, but I am ready to give it a second try. I personally hope that Turkey will change its course from regional confrontation with some of its neighbors to regional cooperation. And in this perspective, I would be glad if Turkey would be capable and willing to join the East Mediterranean Gas Forum as part of regional cooperation. We never close the door. It's also just better
for business, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good for business, and we never close the doors for Turkish participation also in the East Mediterranean Gas Forum. The other shadow, of course, is Iran, and Iran, this is a serious shadow on the entire region. I don't believe that a peaceful and economic cooperation between Israel and the Arab countries will cause some changes within Iran. Actually, some of the energies and some of the impetus to this new kind of, to the Abraham Accord and to this new kind of regional cooperation is because countries, Israel and Arab countries alike, feel that they must cooperate against the Iranian attempt to dominate the region, to disrupt all other countries, Israel and Muslim, Sunni Muslim countries, and also to develop nuclear weapons. So unfortunately, this is not going to change in the near future.
How central is this new energy policy within the Abraham Accords to achieving that kind of regional security when it comes to Iran? Because there are a lot of pieces there, but this tie-up, frankly, via pipelines, does have the potential to divert a lot of energy away from that choke point, which of course in the past has been the Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, the last couple of years, we've seen increased tensions, particularly even in the last several months with Iran and their actions in the Persian Gulf area. How key are the conversations you're having now about pipelines and more agreements to achieving the kind of security that you want to secure?
Actually, we just started to explore the opportunities. Pipeline is one opportunity, one possibility. I don't believe that you know, we can somebody can totally bypass the Hormuz gates. Yeah, the Gulf will be still very important avenue, come what may. By the way, another important opportunity is to link the electricity transmission systems in the entire region. For us, from Israeli perspective, now, for example, it's raining in Jerusalem, and we are going to rely heavily on solar energy, on solar system. We are already second in the world in the amount of electricity production from the sun, from solar system. But sometimes at winter, we have 1 week or 2 weeks of very cloudy weeks. This is not the case in the Emirates or in Jordan or in Saudi Arabia. So connecting all the electricity systems might give us opportunity to give some backing to each other and to save a lot of infrastructure and to be able, at least in the future, to rely more and more about on solar energy. So there are plenty of opportunities here.
Yeah. So where do you see the specific opportunities for institutional investors or the World Bank or the IMF to get involved there? Because essentially what you're saying is it's not just a security agreement. It's also the opportunity to unlock resources for countries in Africa as well as the rest of the Middle East that don't have this kind of access.
Look, it's two different areas. First, you have energy and economic cooperation. Here, I don't think that we need much help from the IMF. Both the Emirates and Israel have had developed very strong and vibrant economies, and investors and entrepreneurs from both sides will find the way to cooperate with some encouragement from the governments. You know, the main encouragement is simply to pave the way and not to cause too many problems.
Roadblocks.
Yeah. Don't block the private sectors. They will find the way how to develop and how to profit. With regard, for example, to Africa, to Sub-Saharan Africa, here, of course, speaking about a new research and development in innovation, I can tell you that in Israel there are many startups that are also dealing with the aim of bringing energy to remote areas, sometimes without the need of the electricity transmission system, how to use solar energy or other kind of energy. Also in the field of water, we are already very active in Sub-Saharan Africa with water solution and electricity solutions. And here as well, you know, the collaboration between Israel and the Arab states, and here we are speaking mainly about the Emirates, can bring a lot of breakthroughs. Here, the IMF or the World Bank can join in, you know, and help such efforts to succeed.
Dr. Steinitz, when you think about this with regards to the nuclear energy question, obviously there's a lot of concern about Iran's nuclear program, but what about the Gulf Arab nuclear programs? We've seen the UAE signing on to the 123 agreement with the United States, but Saudi Arabia has so far decided not to do that. Are you concerned about the growing move toward nuclear energy in the Gulf Arab countries?
Look, first, our main concern is Iran. Iran is really trying to place itself closer and closer to the nuclear threshold, to nuclear weapons. And if Iran will get the bomb, this will be a totally different world. It's a great danger, not just to Gulf countries or to Israel, but also to Europe and United States, actually to the entire world. With regard to the Gulf countries, I think that the agreements between the United States and the United Arab Emirates about nuclear power stations are very reasonable and good agreements with a lot of safeguards. And we think that this, what we call the golden standard, should apply to any other agreement between the United States and other regional players.
Do you think that if the Saudis were to decide not to apply that standard, that makes this area less safe?
Okay, I don't want to get too deep into it. Of course, the best is to apply to those standards. I'm quite confident that the Biden administration will be very careful to try to keep and preserve the highest standards in this regard. And there is no reason why the standard that was adopted by the Emirates and the United States together won't apply to other regional players that like to buy nuclear power stations. Again, this shouldn't distract us from the main issue. And the main issue is, of course, nuclear Iran. Iran should be prevented from getting closer to nuclear weapons. And if the new administration, the Biden administration, wish to have a new nuclear agreement with Iran, it should be quite a different agreement with better safeguards. The Iranian nuclear capability should not be only frozen, but dismantled, rolled back, and there should be no time limit to this agreement. So there are many important remedies that should be put in the case of a new agreement between the United States and the P5+1 with Iran. And again, this is not just the safety of Israel or Gulf states. This is about the safetiness of the entire universe, of the entire world.
When you think about this with regards to the conversations that no doubt the Biden administration is going to be having over the next several months, with regards to potentially resurrecting the JCPOA or creating, as you say, a new agreement with Iran, Gulf Arab countries, and speaking to me on CNBC, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and of course we've heard now from Qatar as well, have suggested that they all deserve a seat at that negotiating table because it has a direct impact, as you say, on them. Do the Abraham Accords and your new relationship with the UAE and Bahrain, among others, give Israel, do you think, a better position to impact whatever happens with these conversations with Iran?
Let's hope so. First, I want to tell you, I met personally with, in the past with the new Secretary of State, Mr. Blinken, and with his deputy, Wendy Sherman. I know both of them. Both of them are very, very smart people, and they are very committed to Israel's security and also to the prevention of Iran from getting nuclear weapons. As the same goes, of course, to President Biden. So basically, we have the same attitude. Iran should never get nuclear weapons and should never even get close to the production of nuclear weapon. Now the issue, what kind of agreement and what kind of means can bring this result, this might be an issue for discussion. But I think that if I'll take the Emirates and the moderate Arab states in general, even, it's not just the Gulf states, the entire Arab world, Israel, Europe, and the United States of America, and the new administration, we start from a joint goal that Iran will never gain nuclear weapons and will never even get close to the production of nuclear bomb.
The devil, though, is in the details, as you say. When we think about what happens over the coming months, obviously the maximum pressure campaign advocated by the Trump administration, lots of critics of that policy, but it did stop a lot of the cash flows to certain parts of the world where Iran has very strong proxies, particularly on your border, Lebanon, Hezbollah. Are you concerned at all that the Biden administration's efforts with regards to Iran could make Israel less safe?
Look, first, we always should be concerned. Our position was very clear. We thought that the maximum pressure policy with regard to Iran was very productive. Iran was weakening. Iran has to reduce its military force building and also its support to some terrorist organizations like Hezbollah and others in the region. And so this was good. Actually, the only thing that ever worked with Iran was pressure and threats. You know, in 2003, after the American invasion to Iraq, Iran finally agreed to sign an agreement and to and to stop its nuclear weapon program. After a year and a half, when they began to believe that there is no valid military threat from the United States anymore, they resumed the program in 2005 or 2006, and so on and so forth. Then again, under the very heavy pressure of the economic sanctions that were put by the Obama administration in 2010, 2012, the Iranians did agree to negotiate and to make some compromises in the nuclear agreement, although insufficient agreement, but still they were at least ready to freeze some of their capabilities due to pressure, due to economic pressure. And now again, so the only thing that worked with Iran is economic pressure combined with a valid military threat that made it clear to them that if they will dash to the bomb, United States, together with the rest of the world, will use brute force in order to stop them. This is the only thing that worked in the past. This is the only thing that might work in the future.
Dr. Steinitz, before I let you go, just a quick question on the pipelines themselves and the energy dynamic that you expect over the next year. Obviously, the Biden administration is advocating for renewables. They're advocating for a very different energy agenda, frankly, than what we saw over the last few years with Donald Trump. 25% of the world's energy flowing through the Persian Gulf and through the Strait of Hormuz, a significant part of the world's energy also flowing through the Suez Canal. How do you see this network of pipelines that you're discussing with the Gulf Arab countries and potentially even one day Iran upending the energy dynamic in this part of the world specifically? Are we going to see less traffic through the Suez as a result of pipelines? Are we going to see less traffic through the Strait of Hormuz as a result of these pipelines? What does that look like in your view?
I don't think so. I don't think that we are speaking about a replacement to the Suez Canal. This is not our intention, but it's just the beginning. We will have to learn the issue and to see the economic feasibility of such pipelines and so on and so forth, because before we can say something solid. In any case, we just started and we have to examine. There are many opportunities for cooperation in general and in the field of energy in particular. I mentioned some of them. And one thing I'm confident, we will have wonderful cooperation with the Emirates and with Bahrain, also in the field of energy, and I assume also in the field of water desalination and water purification of water, of waste water. You know that also in this field, Israel is the world leader. We are the only country in the world that not just 80% of our drinking water are desalinated from the ocean, from the Mediterranean Sea, but close to 100%, 95% of our wastewater, of our sewage, is being recirculated, purified and recirculated for farming and agriculture. And also here, I believe that our experience and knowledge can serve also our new neighbors and friends in the Gulf.
No doubt about it. So many things to keep an eye on. Your Excellency, thank you so much for joining us.
You are most welcome.
Thank you, Hadley, for that really